This story traces the mysterious rise of the man who became the Mouth of Sauron. Before his transformation into the Dark Lord's twisted herald, much of his past is veiled in mystery. Today we explore his rise, tracing his descent from a mortal driven by ambition to the corrupted, disfigured voice of Sauron. Witness his gradual fall into darkness as he becomes the fearsome emissary of evil. In the desolate lands south of Umbar, where the scorching sun beat down upon the weak and the winds carried whispers of ancient malice, a black Númenórean child was born. His name, now long forgotten, mattered little, for he was destined for something far greater and far more terrible. Unlike his Númenórean kin of the West, he was raised in brutality, where survival itself was a cruel battle, and power was the sharpest weapon. His parents, devout worshippers of Sauron, prayed to the Dark Lord in secret shrines hidden deep in the southern hills. His father, a ruthless man who clawed his way to power through violence, taught him that mercy was weakness and only strength was power. From his earliest days, the boy learned to manipulate others, using fear as his weapon, bending wills to his own. His mother, versed in the dark arts, whispered ancient incantations into his ear, feeding his growing obsession with sorcery and dark knowledge. He became strong, cruel, and cunning, his Númenórean blood granting him might greater than the men of the south. He revelled in the fear he inspired, knowing that fear was power, and power was his ultimate desire. Yet, in his heart, there burned an even darker flame, a deep hatred for the followers of Elendil and his heirs, those who had defied Sauron. He longed for the day when the line of Elendil would be crushed beneath the heel of the Dark Lord. In his youth, hardened by the unforgiving lands of the south, he set his sights on Umbar, the city of intrigue and corruption, where power could be seized by the cunning and the ruthless. Upon arrival, he ingratiated himself with the city's lords, quickly gaining influence through manipulation and violence. But political power was not enough to quench his ambition. His mother's teachings had awakened in him a thirst for sorcery, and he sought out those who practiced the dark arts. He apprenticed himself to a sorcerer of great renown, feared throughout Umbar. Under his tutelage, the young black Númenórean delved deeper into the mysteries of sorcery. His hunger for knowledge became insatiable, particularly the dark secrets that might grant him eternal life. The more he learned, the more his soul became twisted by the black arts. His arrogance grew, and he believed himself destined for greatness far beyond the petty squabbles of Umbar's rulers. Through manipulation, fear, and force, he rose swiftly in power. By the time Barad-dûr started to be rebuilt in the year 2951 of the Third Age, he had become a formidable figure, feared by many and answering only to himself. When the whispers of Barad-dûr's rebirth reached his ears, the black Númenórean felt the pull of Sauron's power as a moth to a flame. The worship of Sauron had been the constant shadow over his life, but now the Dark Lord called to him. His ambition, his desire for immortality, all seemed within his grasp. He travelled to Mordor, where the Ashen Lands greeted him with sulphur and shadow. Amidst the legions of orcs and dark creatures, he stood tall and proud, revelling in his superiority. His cruelty, already refined, now took a darker turn. He viewed the orcs as mere tools, bending them to his will through pain and terror. He delighted in torturing them, testing their limits and breaking their spirits. In the shadows of Barad-dûr, his knowledge of sorcery grew, and under Sauron's guidance, his powers became formidable. His life, extended by dark magic, stretched beyond its natural years, sustained by the twisted forces that bound him to his dark purpose. In time, the black Númenórean became more than a servant. He became the Mouth of Sauron, the Dark Lord's emissary. His sharp intellect, cruelty, and commanding presence made him the perfect instrument of Sauron's will. Over time, the whispers of Sauron began to fill his mind, a dark voice guiding his every move. Through these whispers, he learned much of Sauron's will, absorbing the Dark Lord's twisted desires as if their thoughts were entwined. As the years took their toll, the mouth of Sauron's face became horribly diseased, disfigured, and grotesquely large, a twisted reflection of the evil words he spoke as Sauron's herald. His face was a testament to the corruption of his soul, ravaged by the lies and malice that flowed from his mouth. He travelled to distant lands, sowing discord and turning hearts to the Dark Lord's cause. His honeyed words, laced with promises of power and wealth, led many to bow to Sauron's will. Following the death of the White Tree of Gondor, he cunningly stirred the hearts of the Haradrim, convincing them to attack the beleaguered realm. Through his unwavering loyalty and ruthless ambition, he rose further still, attaining the position of Lieutenant of Barad-dûr. In the years that followed, a wretched creature, twisted by the power of the One Ring, was captured by Sauron's servants and dragged into Barad-dûr. Gollum, frail yet cunning, was brought before the mouth of Sauron, who, with cruel precision, extracted the secrets from his tortured mind. Gollum, broken by physical and mental pain, babbled of a thief, a halfling who had stolen his precious and disappeared. Through torment and fear, Sauron learned of the ring's theft and turned his gaze northward, intent on delivering wrath upon those who hid such a prize. In the twilight of the north, a dark figure rode forth from Barad-dûr to the gates of Erebor. The mouth of Sauron, bearing the will of his master, came upon a black steed, his approach silent, but for the cold wind that carried with it despair. Clad in sable armour that reflected no light, he called out to King Dain Ironfoot, his voice like poisoned honey. The Lord Sauron the Great, in his wisdom, extends his hand in friendship, he declared. He inquired of hobbits, asking with urgency of their kind and whereabouts. For Sauron knows, he hissed, that one of these was known to you on a time. As a small token only of your friendship, Sauron asks this, he said, that you should find this thief and get from him, willing or no, a little ring, the least of rings that once he stole. It is but a trifle that Sauron fancies, and an earnest of your goodwill. Find it, and 3 rings that the dwarf sires possessed of old shall be returned to you, and the realm of Moria shall be yours forever. Find only news of the thief, whether he still lives and where, and you shall have great reward and lasting friendship from the Lord. Refuse, and things will not seem so well. Do you refuse? His words, though laced with false promises of power, carried the weight of ancient malice. Yet Dain, steadfast and wary, did not yield. I say neither yea nor nay, he replied, his voice like stone. Consider well, but not too long, the mouth of Sauron warned, his tone sharp as a blade. 3 times he returned, his demands growing darker, until the dwarves of Erebor knew the full weight of his threats. But they did not bow, for they knew that no gift from Sauron came without a shadow of betrayal. Frustrated and seething with malice, the mouth of Sauron finally withdrew, riding back to Mordor to deliver the news of Erebor's defiance to his master. In the year 3019 of the Third Age, as Sauron's forces lay defeated on the Pelennor fields, the mouth of Sauron led the remaining troops to the Black Gate. The army of the West, led by Aragorn, marched before them and called out, "Come forth," they cried. "Let the Lord of the Black Land come forth. Justice shall be done upon him, for wrongfully he has made war upon Gondor and wrested its lands. Therefore the King of Gondor demands that he should atone for his evils, and depart then forever. Come forth." A long rolling of drums, like thunder, answered, followed by the braying of horns that shook the ground. Then, with a great clang, the Black Gate swung open, and an embassy from the Dark Tower emerged, bearing the shadow of Mordor with them. Before the captains of the West, the mouth of Sauron rode forth, tall and terrible, mounted upon a monstrous black steed, if steed it was, for its form seemed shaped more from nightmare than from any creature of Middle-earth. Its face, a frightful mask of death, resembled a skull, with hollow sockets aflame with malice, and its nostrils fuming with a sulphurous breath. "Is there anyone in this rabble with authority to treat with me?" he mocked, his gaze falling upon Aragorn. "It takes more to make a king than a piece of elvish glass, or a rabble such as this." With a wave he summoned a guard bearing a black bundle. From it he revealed a tarnished sword, a grey cloak, and a coat of mithril mail. The sight of these struck the captains like a thunderbolt. "The halfling has failed," he sneered. "Now he shall endure torment beyond imagining, unless you accept my lord's terms." His demands were clear. The rabble of Gondor and its deluded allies shall withdraw at once beyond the Anduin, taking oaths never again to assail Sauron in arms, open or secret. All lands east of the Anduin shall be Sauron's forever. West of the Anduin, as far as the Misty Mountains and the Gap of Rohan, shall be tributary to Mordor, and men there shall bear no weapons. They shall govern their own affairs, but they shall help to rebuild Isengard, which they have wantonly destroyed. And that land shall be Sauron's, ruled by one more worthy of trust than Saruman. The Mouth of Sauron smiled darkly, knowing well the weight of his words, for in his eyes lay the vision of his own rule, a tyrant over the shattered remnants of the free peoples. He saw himself, not Saruman, as the true master of Isengard, wielding dominion over those who once opposed his lord, breaking them under his heel as slaves of Mordor. But it was Gandalf, with finality, who rejected the vile terms. Rage contorted the Mouth of Sauron's face as he fled back into the shadows of Mordor, his fury overcome by fear. With a twisted grin, the Mouth of Sauron ordered the gates of Mordor to be thrown open wide and the dark legions to pour forth, surrounding the host of the West. Confident in their imminent destruction, he revelled in their entrapment, believing their last moments to be at hand. But as the battle unfolded and the One Ring was destroyed, the Mouth of Sauron stood on a hill, watching in disbelief as Mordor's forces crumbled into chaos. Barad-dûr trembled, and the orcs fled. His connection to Sauron, once a source of strength, now filled him with dread. Did he fall with the legions of orcs, lost in the ruin of his master? Or did he, with his cunning and foresight, escape into the distant shadows, seeking to gather new followers in far-off lands? Some whisper that he fled to the far corners of Middle-earth, where he waits, biding his time for the return of darkness. Others claim his soul was bound to the fate of Sauron, forever lost in the abyss. Yet his fate, like his name, remains a mystery, his legacy a shadow that lingers still over the lands of the West. Lastly, if you value authentic content and want to watch my videos before they are recreated as crude imitations by the many AI channels appearing every day, please consider subscribing. Thank you.